Damian Kolodiy, who drove out from the city. What we're going to talk about today is a story that happened over 6 years ago, but there's importance, relevance to it here today with our upcoming election. And we're going to discuss some of the similarities here in the United States and in the Ukraine. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. Could you give me first a little bit background of your history of how you got into filmmaking?
I was doing writing, and then I figured out that people wanted to watch things, not read them, so I went to film school up in Boston, Emerson College, and studied film out there, and then started freelancing as a cameraman and got into doing kind of documentary type work.
Nice. Now, documentaries are a little bit more involved. So what made you look toward the election of 2004 in Ukraine?
I had a feeling that something was going to go on there because the poisoning of Viktor Yushchenko had happened before the elections. Although it wasn't international news at the time, I had been following it because my heritage is Ukrainian. So I'd been paying attention, just had a sense that something was going to go down and it'd be interesting, and no one was covering it, so I should go and bring my camera.
And how long, because you had said earlier you spent about 3 months there, so what was it like for you as a Ukrainian American going there, watching these events unfold before you, and knowing some background history of Ukraine and also being an American film student?
Well, it was an amazing experience. I mean, one of those once-in-a-lifetime experiences that you get to witness kind of this massive people movement, demonstration of people power, and that people can actually influence and change things if they come together and motivate. And being of Ukrainian descent, I mean, I had more access to, as far as interacting with people and them being comfortable with me because I can speak the language and I knew the history and I kind of knew the situation. So it kind of gave me a unique perspective and access where I was able to get some really I think amazing footage during that time. Yeah,
I saw some of your footage, amazing stuff. When the students and the people who learned of the election going one way, because obviously one person was predicted to win and then it went and they said that the election was stolen. So when the people started coming out to the Kiev square, what were their sentiments? Like when you talked to them on the street, why were they coming out in droves? And again, they were very peaceful, correct, when they came out. So what was their feelings about the whole election process?
Their feelings were that their voices were stolen, that the elections had been falsified, and there was just a sense of that, they had been pushed to the point where they were motivated to activate because they just felt, that the time had come and they couldn't take anymore. It was their future that they were fighting for and their children's future.
Now, 6 years later, do you see anything happening here in America that you can draw on from your experience in Ukraine that you might see history repeating itself here, unfortunately?
Well, yeah, a lot of people had hope and faith in the Orange Revolution politicians, and that coalition split apart. A lot of the promises that were made were not fulfilled, and so people got really disenchanted and disillusioned and apathetic to the point where they didn't participate in the next elections. And then what happened was the guy who falsified became president this past February.
And we're talking about Yanukovych, who now runs.
Yanukovych,
yeah.
Correct. So in that sense, it's similar to here, where people had all this hope and faith in Barack Obama, and a lot are not happy with what he's doing, or he hasn't lived up to their expectations. And so right now it's a very sensitive time with the elections coming up here. People who may have been Obama supporters either may just not vote or may change their vote because lack of faith and just kind of feeling apathetic about politics in general.
Right. Now, as a filmmaker, what can you say to the majority if there's an apathy that's coming up because you had firsthand experience on the front line? What can you say to people that you've learned that, again, with what you're seeing, with again, some of the polls reflect President Obama doing not as well currently? What can you say to some of the statistics?
I would, exercise your right to vote. A lot of people don't have that right. A lot of people suffered for us to have that right. And it's never going to be perfect, and sometimes you have to choose the lesser of the two evils, whatever you may believe, but you should really not sit at home and watch TV and not participate. It's part of the process, and you should exercise your vote to be heard.
Now, while you were in Ukraine, how was that shooting? I mean, again, it was a very peaceful demonstration, but how long did they stay in the square in Kiev?
It was a good solid month before the Supreme Court of Ukraine ruled that there would be a new election. And then people stayed another month until the actual inauguration of Viktor Yushchenko. So there was, you know, a good month where there was a mass of people there, and then people still remained. Less so, probably another, so 2 months total.
Right, because some of your B-roll, and we have really nice B-roll, but we can't show it right now, there were tents, so people were actually camping out for a month and so forth. So around, I guess businesses were still going to work every day, but these people, they stayed there because they believed in the cause of another re-election. How did they put up with those conditions of sleeping in tents? And
well, a lot of the local businesses supported the people who were in those tents as far as giving them food. The tents were heated.
Oh, that's good.
A lot of the local businessmen had put money towards making sure that the people were able to have their basic necessities kind of covered. So
now, because of some of the apathy that Ukraine had, what can you see a trend with now the newly elected leader of Ukraine? What are some of the fears that might be coming to the surface now?
Well, now he's more pro-Russian, so he's giving a lot of business, opening a lot of business towards Russia, and leaning away from integration with the European Union and becoming more authoritarian.
Right now we have some of your B-roll on, and we can see orange is a very prevalent cover in Kiev Square. Could you talk about what is on the TV right now with the B-roll?
This is demonstrations in Kiev Square. This is, I think, the first day after the elections when the politicians, the opposition politicians, called for people to come out on the square and support falsified elections, or against the results of the official election results. So these were all orange supporters, which was Viktor Yushchenko's, who was poisoned, his political campaign color.
Now, what was up with he was poisoned because that's why he had the disfiguration on his face, correct?
Yeah,
the mercury levels.
He was poisoned with dioxin a couple of weeks before the election. It was a supposedly lethal dose, but
he survived.
From what I heard, that he threw up shortly afterwards, and so he got a lot of it out of his system, and they were able to save him. But his face was disfigured heavily.
Now, one person who came out very strongly was Tymoshenko, and it's wonderful to see a strong woman in such a political position. What can you say about who she is? Did you have a chance to talk to her, and what type of woman was she?
Well, she's very motivated. She's very articulate. She's got a lot of energy, and she can rally people. Unfortunately, she's a bit of a populist, so sometimes she's very good at telling people what they want to hear. But behind the scenes, I think she has her own agenda, and a lot of people felt that based on her history of how she accumulated her wealth, and that worked against her in this election.
Right.
That she was kind of like thinking short-term gain for herself, long-term goals. But she's an amazing woman, especially in the political culture that's dominated by men.
Correct.
Former Soviet Union. Yeah, it's very male-oriented. So.
Now, when she lost her election, you said she lost by, what, 3%?
3%,
That's
yeah.
so small.
And there was 4% of people voted against all. So they actually went out to the polls and checked off, I vote against all. So, wow. and if that, those people had voted, that would have been the difference in swaying the victory her way. Yeah.
And we see that so many times because, again, Polish, they take so many votes, and they see about if it's raining, it might be more popular for Democrats. If it's not raining, it's more popular for Republicans. Oh, here we have Tymoshenko, and she's talking. And what were some of the famous chants that they had in Kiev Square that they would rally with?
It was like, together we are many and we can't be defeated. That was kind of like the main one. Yushchenko, yes. East and West together, because there's a geographic division, so they wanted to kind of show that they weren't against the Eastern Ukrainians who supported, but they wanted to unify. Yeah.
Nice. Now, what type of projects are you thinking about? Any other projects here in America, or anything else that might interest you to kind of do some research and make another documentary film?
I've been filming in Ukraine every year since the Orange Revolution. I don't know if I want to make a project of it, but I'd like to archive that material. But I'm looking to do more, maybe some shorter pieces and short films, and maybe work more television-oriented kind of projects.
Thank you. Well, thank you once again for joining us and for sharing your experiences in Ukraine, because again, here in America, we have our upcoming elections, and I'm sure there's a lot we can share from country to country about what it means to not be apathetic and to get out and vote. So with that, we're going to throw it over to Joe and see what's going on at the weather desk.